middle school level. It just depends on what our education has been. The fifth shift is the application part. It's the real world. How does that math apply to the real world situations? Know what math to use in which situations. That's probably the most critical. Do I add, do I subtract, do I multiply, do I divide? How do I figure it out? It's important that we ask our child to do the math that comes up in daily life. We go to the grocery store every day. I don't know about you, but when they say, here's your change, and they put it in your hand, I look at it and I have to make sure that they gave me the right change. Only because they typed in something in the computer and they counted it out, but they don't count it back. That's a skill that we've given up with our kids, is because of computers. Well, when you put an extra zero on there, somebody's getting a lot more change than they really deserve, especially if you don't count it back and you don't realize what's in there. So those are skills that you can practice with your children on a daily basis. If you're going on a road trip, you got to calculate your your gas and how many miles you get in your car. How do kids work through those problems is applying the math. When do we add up the miles that we're going to travel, but then we have to divide it by the number of miles that we get per gallon. So it's that real life application process. Very critical. And it can happen all the time, anytime. Kids need to think fast and they need to be able to solve the problems. We want them to do calculations to automaticity, to be able to do it without having to think about, oh gosh, how many fingers do I have, and it's 9 times 4, and working out those problems, because that's what gets in the way and it gets kids stumped. They also need to, as I said before, they need to apply that to the real world. It's important that your kids practice on a regular basis, knowing what their strengths are, building upon those strengths, but also addressing what areas they may have challenges in. This right here is a 5th grade CST question. That's the California Content Standards that we have been using since, 1997. The standards were adopted for the state, and we have been using them as our guidance for the last 16 years. And we are now shifting to the Common Core state standards. The Common Core are the adopted state standards. But this is an actual question from a 5th grade test. So if you take a look at that, anybody want to take a stab at what the answer might be? Sure. Okay, do we have a consensus that the answer is D? Mm-hmm. Anybody want to tell me how you figured it out? Sure. Okay, wait, are you a 5th grade teacher?
I'm a homeschool teacher,
okay.
so I'm fine off.
I was going to say,
okay. I converted to minutes. I said a quarter of an hour is 15 minutes, and a third of an hour is 20 minutes. I added together that's 35 minutes, 35 over 60, and I reduced that to 7 over 12. So it's 7/12 of an hour. That's one way to get there.
That's one way to get there. Any other ways?
Yeah, I'm a 5th grade tutor, so I convert from one quarter to 4/12, and then 1/3 to 4/12, and the 1/4 to 3/12. So I add the two together, and I get 7/12.
Okay.
And
anybody else figure it out a different way?
Did you forget that?
Did it the same way? I did mine very similar to the way you did yours on the first one, except I looked at a clock and said, well, there's 12 sets of 5 in there, and I went 5, 10, 50, I went 7 times, so now I have 7 out of 12. So I looked at a clock and I arranged it that way. There are different ways to get to the answer. We all had the correct answer, but we were each able to explain what we had done. And I think that's where the key is that we can explain how we've done it. And my way is correct, your way is correct, and your way is correct. It's how our minds think. In different situations.
You have also being test savvy, so somebody who is sharp at tests looks at the answers and sees that there are fractions.
And there is some of that with the Common Core, and the assessments that are coming with the Common Core are going to be a little bit different. So not that there aren't going to be multiple choice, but there's also going to be the application process. Now the assessments are in the developmental stage at this point. So we're still working on trying to figure out what those are going to be, because they're in the process of developing those. Now this is a, oops, I added stuff on this slide. Sorry, I didn't know that was all there. This is a Common Core assessment, 5th grade as well. So give me a chance to read that one. Along with it being a reading test, which is, I mean, we've always complained about the CST test, or the STAR test, that they were also a reading test, but look at how much more reading there is here. But how many of you have a son or a daughter who might have a friend, and they might talk about how much pizza they can eat? So this is a real life situation, especially for, you know, a 9-year-old in 5th grade. They're still talking about fractions. We have 1/4, we have cheese pizza. This is just information. We have 3/8 of a pepperoni pizza. Some of the information is pertinent, some of it, it could be, it might not be. It might help the child figure it out though. So here's a solution. Now, there's a lot on the slide, so, because I couldn't get it to break up, but this here, a child has developed a key to tell you that Tito ate something, that Luis ate something, the types of pizza, your cheese, your pepperoni, your mushroom pizzas. They've drawn the pizzas, they've divided them up, they've converted them to fractions, they had to find the common denominator. So they're showing their work and they're actually articulating their thought process. And this is how we actually find out if students are understanding the concept of adding like fractions. How do you find that common denominator? Which is more, which is less. So we have adding, we have adding and we have multiplying, we have more and less. So we have a series of skills. And this, again, they're both 5th grade tests. They both talk about fractions. Yes?
If children are answering like this, they're going to take a whole lot longer to forget it, so they go through and see every.
Absolutely. That's
There are
why
fewer
there's-
questions.
Yeah.
Yes,
So-
there would be fewer questions.
So what's happening this spring? Like I said before, the governor signed a bill a week and a half ago to suspend the STAR test. So in this spring, there's gonna be a test of the test. So all our students will be taking the SBAC test, either in ELA or math, okay? 3rd through 8th grade, and all juniors as well in high school, okay? So at that time, it's just gonna be a test of the test for that exact reason, whether to see how long it really takes students to take the test. We have to iron out all our glitches with technology, with our bandwidth, those types of things. So in this spring, it is gonna be a test of the test to see how this rolls out.
Can they make this kind of an answer on the computer? I've heard a lot of this is going to be on the computer that is adaptive, that can change how to get answers. So how do you make that kind of drawing on a computer?
That question actually came up in one of our previous sessions, so I did a little footwork. And what I have been told is that in the assessment itself, there are the drop-down menus, very much like a paint program where they could draw a circle, they could draw squares, do shapes, lines, and all that. So now we've brought in a whole different set of skills for kids, and that is using the computer. We talked, somebody said, is everybody gonna have a stylus like an iPad? And I don't believe that's gonna be the case, because we're just not quite there technologically. But that the program and the assessment actually has the drop-down menus. In the reading portion of the elementary test, kids are asked to highlight on the computer, the sentence that tells something about the story. It's one of the questions. And they actually put their cursor on that. They have to click and drag, and then the highlighter tool comes up. So the computer program that the test is on will give the kids the ability to do much of this work. 1 second, sir.
Not a problem.
I'm sorry?
Not a problem. Go ahead.
One of the key things is this is how we're teaching to make sure that kids understand. And then when we know that they can do this, we know that they know it well. And then we can also have, is it this is the type of an answer that they can select as well. Yes.
Will, with that computer system, will the children be hooked up to test their heart rate?
That I don't
To
know.
look at
It's
their
a good
eyes,
idea.
just their facials, no, it's in Common Core. So I'm just curious, are they gonna be tested for a database to see how they're responding to the curriculum?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
There are some things that are floating out there which they're referring to as the myths and things that are out there. Those are starting to come our way because we want to be able to dispel those. I really don't believe we're going to be setting up your children on a heart monitor as they're taking the assessment. So, yes ma'am.
I was just curious, how are the kids going to know how to work the test on the computer? Because I know when I get a new program,
Right.
you're sitting there going, well, I have one question. Is it going to be like a huge learning curve when
Absolutely.
they take these tests, just how
Right.
to use that computer program?
And we have been working over the last year to train teachers and implementing programs that do focus on these skills. We have